So you've previously argued that the sci-fi dream of AI as, yeah, I mean, this is we talked about earlier, as an infallible answer machine is disempowering and it's misguided. And in chapter 10 of your book, you note that disempowerment doesn't scale, but human flourishing does. And so how can investors and companies reframe their perception here? So reframe engagement metrics away from stickiness and towards sustained creative empowerment, kind of like you and David have with Wave AI.
Yeah, it's interesting that this addiction model persists even when the biggest problem with Gen AI products is this kind of one hit wonder phenomenon. When a person feels really like they're really unnecessary, let's say there's like a little app where I upload my photos and then it does something fun with them. I might enjoy it once or twice, but if I feel like I'm not really doing anything, I don't have any control over what comes out, even if it's kind of cool, I'm very unlikely to come back. So we had a whole bunch of one hit wonder sort of Gen AI products. People want to feel that they're doing something. People want to express themselves. They want to realize their own ideas. And industry and investors in particular have been very, 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 very slow to realize that. I believe that the reason ChatGPT is successful is because for those who want to give of themselves, for those who want to really collaborate, it makes that possible. And that's why it's so successful. So it's sort of like we need to sort of snap out of these old, outdated, exploitative practices that a lot of us sort of believe in them as gospel and really explore what's meaningful and appropriate with this technology, which I believe, from my experience in business and otherwise, that the real potential is to really elevate humans and our capacity.
Yeah, it's a great idea, and I agree with it wholeheartedly. It does seem like it's going to be hard to convince product managers. you know, do you have any sense? I realize this is a really tricky question. I don't have a good answer to this, but you're a lot more creative than I am. How do we how do we convince big enterprises, product managers to move away from just stickiness to empowering people?
I think we need to explain to them why something like why the products that are successful, why they are successful. ChatGPT has not been beat yet. It's the number one. It's one of the most successful products in history. And that's the case not because you press a button and it replaces you, but because of power users. You always have to look at power users because those are the ones who are the customers that love you, show you where the product needs to go. And those are the users that go deep, that become better as a result of using ChatGPT. I've heard people say that their vocabulary expanded, their writing style got more diverse as a result of using ChatGPT when you use it with a certain kind of intention. And also to show examples of how this sort of replacive paradigm has often failed in a lot of smaller products, but also how it ultimately fails collectively. This whole like everyone optimizes for themselves really fails when we want to apply AI to replace human workers. Because if we don't have any more human workers, the entire economy collapses. And so it's really time to wake up from these incredibly greedy principles that are guiding our economy and to think more holistically in this moment, not assume that the old principles are just going to keep working and somehow magically everything is going to work out.
Yeah, perhaps Gen AI will kind of force this shift that you're hoping for in product managers and in enterprises. You mentioned in your most recent response this idea of diverse responses, and so in interviews, you have previously contrasted convergent systems that gravitate towards safe, average outputs with divergent co-creative tools, presumably like your Lyric Studio and Melody Studio, that widen the search space and, like you just said, broaden people's vocabularies, increase the diversity of their writing styles. So as AI scales to creating music, to creating video, how do we keep models from nudging creators toward averaged, risk averse aesthetics where, you hear another pop song that sounds the same? Yeah, how do we instead get diversity?
Yeah, it's really impressive what industry has done to Gen AI. Gen AI has always been about expanding possibilities. That's how it was born. Going to new spaces. We think of creativity as this massive search of possibilities. The next line of lyrics, there are billions of options. How do we search, right? You're about to play the piano, John. You were talking about playing other people's pieces, like we're all told. Where do we even start? What could be my first note? What could be my second note? It's a search space problem. And machines are phenomenal at just exploring different unlikely possibilities. And even in trying to take you to places that are pretty good, but not very common. The problem is that science fiction has convinced investors and some entrepreneurs that it's better to create an all knowing oracle that gives you the most expected, most safe, most you've seen it a million times already answer, which is maybe good for a fact lookup table, but it really limits what Gen AI can do. And it's never actually going to be very good at being an all knowing oracle, regardless of what we do. And so when you look at ChatGPT and you're like, oh, AI is not creative, that's because ChatGPT is optimized for the opposite. Inherently, from a technical standpoint, you have to take creativity into account from the beginning in the way that you construct this machine brain. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not that hard. If we figured it out as a team of three, granted we have David, but still a team of three people originally at Wave AI, then I'm sure somebody like OpenAI, Microsoft, and Google can figure it out. It's just not their goal. Their goal is not to open our minds. Their goal is to replace search. And I think that goal needs to be modified.